Ora, olá, o meu nome é Henrique Pereira e este é o primeiro episódio de Casa Assombrada. É um programa de entrevistas focado principalmente em política, fenómenos sociais e outras coisas que eu possa achar interessantes. Aí eu também estou desengonçado. Ok, direito. O nosso primeiro convidado não fala português, portanto eu vou começar a falar inglês daqui a nada. E vocês, como portugueses, estão habituados e vão acompanhar, nem que seja com a ajuda das legendas.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. With us today, we have Jerome Bark, who is a ex-Israeli and pro-Palestinian. So we're going to talk with him to know more about the subject, to clarify some things, and to get the real POV from someone who's been in the fight for, I'd say, a couple of years.
Mhm.
So, hello, Jerome.
Nice to be here.
Welcome to our haunted house. The first thing I wanted to ask you is like some personal question just to contextualize the viewers. Did you grow up in Israel?
Yes, I wasn't born in Israel. I was actually born in South Africa. And when I was about 6 years old, my family moved to Israel. I grew up the rest of my life in Israel.
Have you served in the IDF?
Yes, I was actually still very ideological, believing in a Zionist dream in which Zionism was a good thing and that military service is important. I joined the IDF and I served as a computer technician, basically a desk job, 9 to 5.
And you were involved in operations, for example?
No, it was just like in a normal office, just military offices and computer stuff.
So what do you do right now, if you want to talk about it?
I've continued in the computer field. I write software, mainly software for automatic testing of products.
You grew up as a Zionist?
Yes, but in the framework we grow up, unless you come from a very unique political anti-Zionist home, you are taught a very naive perspective of what Zionism is. It's supposed to be something good. It's supposed to be a way of protecting Jewish people. You're never exposed to a critical perspective of Zionism.
Yeah.
It's like when the Jewish people built their home here, there were no people living here beforehand. And the reason for the Zionism was build a safe place where Jews could live. Only much later, once I was in university, and I started getting politically involved, was I exposed to different perspective about the colonial roots, understanding that the history that I was presented with was one lie.
So you were exposed in college, you'd say?
Yes, and even then it was a gradual process until I had this discussion with a friend of mine, and it brought me to realization that you can either have a democracy where everybody is equal, or you can have Zionism when Jews have more rights. They are more equal than others.
Some people like to say that that's not true because Palestinians can work there and everything and be part of society. Like, what do you think of people that say that?
What they say is technically true. Palestinians can work and be part of society, but there is segregation. Jewish people and Palestinian people inside of Israel don't live together. They don't enjoy the same institutional support. So they don't have equal opportunity, even in the areas where officially by law they are equal.
In practice, it's
But
not.
but there are also actual laws which state that this is a state for Jewish people. There is land allocation, which is most of the land in Israel can only be provided for Jews to settle on. Different budgets for different projects denied from Palestinian society, mainly allocated to Jewish society. So there's institutionalized discrimination. Also within the judicial system, law enforcement, you'll see that
The treatment is different.
the treatment is completely different, much more harsh. Also the police and also the courts, much more harsh towards the Palestinian population. It's definitely a form of apartheid, part of it within the legal system and part of it like institutionalized.
It's not really a democracy, it's just a democracy for Jewish people?
Different shades of democracy. From the aspect of the power of the individual, of the citizen, to influence the society in which he is living.
You grew up in that environment and eventually started changing your mind. Did you do activism there? Tell me what the progression was.
I grew up in a small town, so the range of political ideas was a bit more limited. But when I went to university, my initial involvement is in what you'd call the peace movement, advocating peace initiatives and supporting...
By peace, do you mean two-state solution?
End of fighting, end of war, end of military activity. At that time, I would say the majority of Israelis actually generally wanted that. They wanted to have peace. But what I say is they wanted to have peace, but they weren't really prepared to give peace. They saw their side of the story, but they weren't prepared to see the other side of the story and make the sacrifice that was necessary on their behalf so that the other side would also have peace. I think in general it's very difficult for people to accept their privilege and the fact that although they might feel certain suffering, their perspective of reality and what's causing this suffering and what's causing the current state is not what they were taught from a very young age. We are taught that Israel always wanted peace and the Arab countries always wanted to destroy Israel and refused to have peace with Israel. So,
by the way, you're Jewish, right?
Yes, I'm of Jewish origin. Yes, I don't not observant. My parents were more observant, so we did more of the practices and that. But
you didn't care that much.
I don't know. I think maybe when I was younger, I felt a form of identity. And
did you do a bar mitzvah?
Yes. Yeah.
I heard it's fun.
It's a very for all children. I think youngsters in Israel, it's like a important event.
It's like the quinceañera for Mexicans.
And you get a lot of presents.
Yeah, of course, that helps. Going back to your progression, like how did that go for you?
Then I became exposed to other aspects, like the issues of human rights. And then one day I came across, I think it was recently published, a report by Israeli human rights organization B'Tselem, which focuses on Israeli occupied territories, the West Bank and Gaza Strip. This report was about practices of torture that were used by the Israeli security forces, police, it's called the GSS, the General Security Services. And hearing that our society, our country tortures people, this totally shocked me. And I thought, this can't be going on and people say nothing about it. They obviously don't know about this. When they taught us as children or youngsters about the Holocaust, is that people nearby where things were happening, they said they didn't know about this. They said, we had no idea. So I went around campus and I copied parts of the report and I put them up on the boards. And I said, don't say you didn't know.
But apparently
most of they did know. Most of people, especially those that were older than I, were more experienced, they actually did know, which was even a bigger shock for me.
So you think there's like a moment where an Israeli finds out about things and makes a choice?
Yes.
As adults?
Yes, sometimes there's also denial. People will say, no,
it's so bad,
they don't want to have to deal with it. Once you recognize that this is happening, you either have to say, well, this is justified or this is unjustified. And if it's unjustified, then you have some kind of moral obligation to maybe do something about this or say something about it.
Have you ever suffered any consequences for spreading awareness?
I participated in some demonstrations and activities that were maybe a bit more violent and beaten up by the police and normal things that would maybe happen to Palestinians on the regular. I think the most difficult thing is I became much more and more alienated and I felt very alone. At times when I lived in a major city, then there were more people like me and we could meet and have our own community and we knew that we were understood. When I lived in smaller places, I really felt isolated. Also, sometimes simple things like you would go for a picnic. For most of the people, that would be a nice picnic in olive grove in the nature. But I would be aware that these olives didn't grow from, these were planted here probably by Palestinians before 1948. And it's probably the ruins of some Palestinian village nearby. So it's always weighed heavy on me, the
They're cutting them down.
They cut down
Is that true?
trees.
Or is it like an exaggeration
It's mainly actions performed by settlers
in the West Bank?
in the West Bank to terrorize the Palestinians.
So they're really like raising down hundreds
a
of...
lot of trees, yes. Recently there was an official action by the military, like as a form of collective punishment against villages in the area where some settlers were attacked, so they cut down the trees.
Because the trees were shooting against the settlers.
Well, in that area, there's been for some time now a government-supported initiative to try and get the Palestinians that are living there to leave the area. They use the settlers because the settlers are extreme. They see the Palestinians as being subhuman, that are occupying land that was promised to them by God.
Why do they all look crazy?
Why do they look crazy?
Every time I see a video of settlers, you know, when they go to the villages to bother people, they always look like they took some methamphetamine or something.
Because some of the people that reach these places, there are people that were rejected from other forms of society. Some of them criminals, other rejects.
They send the worst of the worst to make way for the settlements.
Israeli government doesn't really officially send them, but they bring the soldiers to stand by to protect them, and they don't do anything to stop them. And even when these settlers sometimes attack the soldiers, they don't do anything against them. They come from a violent background, and then they find purpose in these extreme ideologies.
But how do they find those people? Like
the settler communities, they try to collect lost souls, offer them homes, and they invite them over for dinner to spend with families, and invite them to stay over. That is very much like cult behavior, recruitment.
And it's also people in difficult situations.
Yes.
That would want a free house, new opportunities.
It's more of a home and a society where they can feel part of something. If you talk about free homes, there are definitely a group of the settlers that moved to live in illegally occupied West Bank, for instance, just because they had very cheap housing, and because Israeli government would invest a lot to encourage more Jewish people to go and settle there.
After you started feeling alienated, what was the next moment?
I understood fundamentally that a Zionist state cannot be a truly democratic state. I opened up to more the history and the destruction of Palestinian life during the Nakba, and connection of the establishment of the State of Israel to the colonial powers. That kind of, could say, radicalized my perspective. I eventually became member of a group that we supported establishment not of two-state solution, but one secular democratic state in the entire area of Palestine, where all people would be equal.
One person, one vote.
Yes, exactly.
And would it be called Israel or Palestine?
I don't care.
Israelstein. Israelstein.
Israelstein.
That sounds Jewish.
Should I? Yeah.
Israelstein. Anyway, did you experience, something that was life-changing?
There was one event which I always remember, and that also very much impacted the way I think that it should be approached. When the Oslo Accords were signed, I was then part of this one-state solution group, very critical of the Oslo Accords, and trying to persuade everyone against them. And also, people celebrated, and I saw that even the most radical posers from the Palestinian side, all they wanted was really just an opportunity to have a normal life. They didn't want to now continue to struggle for one secular democratic state. They just wanted to try and find some normality. And for me, that gave me a lot of hope. And this is a message that I try to pass on to a lot of Israelis, that the Palestinians, even, as I said, many of the very radical ones, they just wanted to find normality. They're prepared to compromise. We stand from the outside as Israeli activists or European activists. And it's right that we demand what we demand, but we must always remember that there's the Palestinian at the end of it, and he's the one that's going to have to pay the price, and he's the one that has the only right to decide if something should be accepted or not.
They're a bit like the Jewish immigrants that are promised a home and just want to live a life. But there's an inequality, right?
Yes.
It's not the same thing.
It's not the same thing, because one is living a life of privilege, is living a life that is on the expense of another person.
One is at the cost of the other.
Yes. You have responsibility as a person with privilege, and you can't just ignore, because that's convenient for you.
Do you think Israel was promised 4,000 years ago? You
I don't
care.
think it matters. They can have it. Jewish people can live all over Israel, but just live democratically and equally with other people.
Can you explain a little bit the psychology of an Israeli? I mean, I know they want to live their life and they think they're entitled to be there, but they are aware of the oppression and they take part in it.
Well, the main way that is used in Israeli society is to justify various degrees of oppression by saying this is done for security reasons. And people accept that because they don't want to question things too much, because it could pull a thread that might destabilize too much of what they believe in. They don't want to be considered traitors or...
Yes, but for example, I've seen the polls. Most of Israelis support what is happening in Gaza right now.
This is an extreme deterioration. You need to realize that if the current willingness to kill and destroy might be a natural development of previously embedded ideas and ideology, but it's been a big jump, a big peak.
It's worse now.
It makes me sad to hear from a relative of mine. He's young and he never was extreme in any way, but he says now that if we don't kill the children in Gaza, then they're going to grow up and they're going to want revenge.
I think that's what the Nazis said.
And I think it was Himmler. He said they'd use that also as a justification.
I never been there. I only see what's on my screen. And I also wanted to talk to you to know if I'm being manipulated. I know the history, I know the facts, and I sympathize with the Palestinian side, but you confirm that the general state of the population in Israel is very extremist right now.
Even those that want to stop the war is because it is harming Israel and the Israelis. The hostages, soldiers are being killed, Israel's diplomatic status is being damaged economically. The reason they want this is not because of the plight of the Palestinians.
It's very hard to humanize the Israeli side because I see them like destroying aid.
Even when it was known that it's only there's a total blockade, it didn't cause an outcry. A lot of Israelis believe also that the things that you see on TV and the media, that it's fake, that it's AI, they call it Gaza wood, like Bollywood.
They think they have the capability of creating full sets that look super realistic.
I don't argue with these people. I don't think.
Yeah, I think that people that say Bollywood, they're like off the deep end. They're gone.
Seeing the Israelis and also people that I know that I thought wouldn't support such genocidal rhetoric, seeing how easily they connect with this, it strengthens my concept that the atrocities that are committed throughout history, it's done by human beings. In Nazi Germany, it was regular human beings that did this. It wasn't monsters. Because when we call them monsters, it removes a certain amount of responsibility from them and from us as a society.
Keeping up on the subject of the psychology of Israelis, what's the importance of religion in Zionism in practical terms? Is it a major motivation?
Originally, Zionism was very disconnected from religion, had a lot of socialist ideology involved. I think there is an increasing group of religious Zionists that are like more messianic.
But I've heard a lot about, prophecies and stuff. That thing about the end of times and the red heifers and the third temple.
Yeah, so there is a group that wants to rebuild the third temple
in Jerusalem.
In Jerusalem. It's an area under Israeli rule. It includes where the current dome of the...
It's the biggest mosque there.
Yes. They're trying to make preparations that everything is needed to rebuild a new temple. There was one person who attempted to blow up that mosque.
The Christian Zionists in the United States.
Yes.
They believe in it.
Yes.
The Jewish extremists in Israel, I think they collaborate together.
They collaborate, but for different reasons, because according to those Christians that believe in the rapture, they basically want to bring Armageddon. In the rapture, only the true Christians will go up to heaven and everyone else will go to hell, including those Jewish people that are...
Why would those Jewish people...
Because those Jewish people don't believe in the rapture.
So they're using the Christian belief for what?
Those Christians are more supporting the state of Israel, so that the state of Israel will create Armageddon.
Those Jewish extremists don't believe in Armageddon, so they're just taking advantage of the crazy Christians. So while the Armageddon doesn't happen, they keep helping Israel. That's smart. Did you know extremists in Israel?
I did know when I was in university. There was a guy who was he belonged to a movement called Kach, which was the movement that was established by Rabbi Kahana and was illegalized in Israel because it was racist, considered racist, and was at that time illegalized. Now its members are they're member of the parliament, the Israeli cabinet, the Ben Gvir and Smotrich. They were members of this organization. Anyway, this guy that I knew, he turned out to be an agent of the Israeli Secret Service,
Mossad?
the GSS.
So there's the GSS, the Shin Bet, and the Mossad.
Yeah, well, the GSS and the Shin Bet are the same.
And how do I know you're not one of them?
You don't really,
Bye, guys.
but I could refer you to a creditable Israeli source that knows me. If you know Dr. Ilan Pape.
You know Ilan Pape?
Yes. I worked for him for a period. It was part of an initiative we created together called the Movement Against Israeli Apartheid in Palestine, founded by Dr. Uriel Davis, who was, I think, one of the first people who actually wrote about Israel as an apartheid state from a legal perspective.
So you know Ilan Pape? Can you like, does he come to Portugal? Can you? So you were like his buddy.
I'm not his buddy so much. I mean, we work together.
Maybe he could come on the show.
Yeah.
Do you think that's?
If he comes to Portugal, I'll definitely reach out to him and I will tell him he can come to speak on your show also.
Yeah, you could put in the words for me. Yeah.
Okay.
For those who don't know, Ilan Pape is one of the biggest or most respected Israeli historians about Palestine.
Yes, he's a historian, most outspoken in criticizing the Israeli historiography.
Let's talk about your move to Portugal. When did that happen exactly?
I moved 2 years ago. This was before the October 7th.
So you moved before the October?
Yes.
Did you know it was going to happen?
No, I didn't know it was going to happen. The thing is that for a long time I wanted to leave Israel. My wife wasn't interested in leaving. She felt connected too much. Eventually, she also realized that the situation in Israel is only deteriorating and there's no future for us, no future for our children there as people who want to live in a democracy and a country that treats people in a decent and human way. She had an elderly mother, so only when her mother passed away did we really find that it was now possible.
So after the mother of your wife passed away,
yes.
Your wife agreed?
She didn't want to live in Israel anymore. For me, is that I came to Portugal and under the decision that I am going to be now putting aside the political activism. There's a new generation of younger people. I'm going to leave it for them. Being involved emotionally in what's going on puts a lot of stress on me and makes me very unhappy and depressed. And I decided I wanted to, for me and for my wife and our relationship, to put it aside. And then the October 7th attack occurred, and I remember watching it on television. I underestimated it. I said this is going to be a serious drawback in the negotiations between the Israelis and Palestinians for future. As soon as Israel started responding and destroying and killing and beginning a genocide, I said, I cannot be silent now anymore.
You had to come back, put the cape back on.
Plunged back in.
Was it easy to move to Portugal?
I have a German passport because my grandfather, he was from Germany and refugee in the Second World War, and my wife has French passport, so it was easy for us to gain residency. People were very warm and welcoming.
Portugal has a law that enables Jewish people to reclaim nationality, right?
Mm-hmm.
Could you use it if you needed it?
That's a more complicated process and takes longer. And you have to be of certain origin, prove that you were somehow related to the Jews that were deported.
How do you prove that? It was like 500 years ago.
I think it's a bit based on your family name and...
You have to own a menorah, like a really old menorah or something?
No. There's a lot of people that saw an opportunity to move here for whatever reason.
Do you know a lot of Jewish people here?
Mainly Israelis, a lot of groups in each region. So there's a group WhatsApp group for Israelis in Coimbra and for Israelis in Porto and Lisbon.
And are they like Zionist or?
Zionists, pro-Israel, but mainly they don't want to talk about politics.
They don't want trouble.
Not trouble. Most of them want to have a group that supports the community, to help each other.
But from your perspective, like, you think the Jewish people, first of all, Jewish people and Israelis is not an interchangeable term. Like, you can be Jewish and not be Israeli, right?
Yes. I don't know what the numbers are now, but definitely until a few years ago, most of the Jewish people that lived here in Portugal were not Israelis.
It came out recently in the news that the biggest population with acquired Portuguese citizenship was the Jewish groups through that process, that historical. Do you think the Jewish people that are here are just Jewish people, or Israelis from Israel?
I think that most of them are Israelis from Israel. I think there are very few people that are moving from other countries to Portugal using the Jewish option.
On the news, there's a lot of commentators that are just as crazy as the ones you see on Channel 14 in Israel.
Yeah.
We have a lot of tourists that come here like to do like raves, big raves. Mm-hmm. Most of them are Israeli soldiers. Until a couple of days ago, we didn't recognize Palestine. And we have the ambassador going on TV saying the usual things, like Hamas, Hamas, Hamas. How do you gauge the influence that Israel has in Portugal?
I think that compared to other European countries, it's less about these raves. It's more dominant in Israeli culture. I think sometimes it's because they go to a 3-year period of rigid military service. After that period, or even during that period, they really need to let loose.
Maybe it's because Portugal kind of looks like it kind of feels like Israel, maybe?
Yes, it does.
I imagine it's like that.
It does a lot. The climate is very similar. We have a similar size of population, but the size is much bigger. It does get colder here. Portugal is relatively cheap for Israelis. They do the same thing in India. Like, they have a lot of festivals and things. Some of them are.
They do the festivals everywhere.
Yes.
Even in the border with Gaza, and barbecues. You don't think Israel has a particular influence?
There are Zionist initiatives that are usually backed by Israel. Basically, one is to bring Jewish people to Israel. They bring them on trips to experience Israel as a pleasant experience, trying to persuade them to live in Israel. Another thing is that throughout Europe, there are chapters, parts of an organization that they try to use local Israelis to propagate Israeli propaganda.
Like recruiting chapters?
They recruit because the people are there that support already the Israeli government. They bring them together. They try to connect to them as a community, and then they try to strengthen their Israeli identity and strengthen their connection to Israel.
So this is an operation, kind of?
I know there is one center, which I don't know how active it is, but they have a website, and they mention Koja as one of the...
Koja?
Yes. And there's a large ex-Israeli community there.
And they organize?
To try and help Israeli Hasbara.
How does that work?
Building and strengthening community, strengthening its connections with Israel. They see themselves as an extension. They continue, instead of seeing themselves as Portuguese and living in a new society, they see themselves as continuing to be Israelis. There are others.
And do you think they're effective?
I think in certain places, like in Berlin, but also there in Berlin is a strong support from the government.
Still speaking of Portugal, what do you think of the recent recognition of the Palestinian state?
I think it's a good step, although it's a very small step really, and a lot of people criticize it. I think for Israel it's a slap in the face, and it also legitimizes the position of being a bit more pro-Palestinian and a bit less pro-Israel, which I think paves the way for other countries.
It's not weird anymore to be pro-Palestinian. It's legitimized.
Yes.
Why is that happening now? It's not just Portugal.
I think the European community were hoping that they can persuade the Israeli government to stop. Maybe they were hoping that Trump would somehow intervene. But I think they've reached a conclusion that Israel won't listen at all until more drastic measures are taken. Inside the countries themselves, the citizens are becoming more upset, and they're against what Israel is doing, telling their governments that they cannot be silent anymore.
They recognize Palestine, but they want total demilitarization, total control, removing Hamas from any position of leadership. Do you think those demands are fair?
I think it's just to counter various Israeli excuses why there shouldn't be a Palestinian state. I think the actual declaration and recognition is more important. It's not something that's going to be happening in the near future.
I understand that we're talking about a very slow process.
Yes.
Very slow, positive, apparently positive process, but it must be faster. I don't think.
I don't think that the international community is responding fast enough and with enough force that it should. Within 2 years, if Israel is not stopped, then the Gaza Strip will be emptied of Palestinians.
Do you think our politicians are complicit?
Yes.
And do you think justice will ever be served? Well, I'm even talking about the Portuguese politicians. Do you think they're complicit?
Yes. They are avoiding taking action and taking a stance where it's morally obligated to do so. It's just like people and countries that stood by when Germany was killing Jews in Second World War.
But for like Netanyahu and Ben-Gvir and Smotrich.
You mean if they would be punished?
I'm pretty sure the Nazis didn't think, and the Nazi accomplices didn't think they would go to The Hague, but they did. Do you see it happen?
I don't know. My main focus now is if the Palestinians will be saved. If they are saved, if they have to strike a deal, that part of the deal is that Bibi is let off. Personally, I would support that, because what's most important for me now is not the punishment, but saving the lives. Nazis were prosecuted because they were defeated, and they didn't have any bargaining. It's not that they offered, we'll stop killing Jews if you don't prosecute us.
So how does a Palestinian preserve hope? Like, because the signs are positive. The world is awake. Our politicians are being forced to recognize Palestine, but they're still getting bombed every day. How can a Palestinian be hopeful?
I think they live in a different world, a different reality. Hope is a luxury. They're just trying to survive, just trying to make sure that they're not bombed, that they're not shot, that they can get food. Hope, like we think about it, is...
It's just the perspective of someone who's not there.
Yes.
Do you think the West Bank is completely controlled by Israel now?
Officially, there are areas where there's the Palestinian self-management. But whenever Israel decides that it wants to, for whatever reason, they send the army inside there and
they do whatever
they want to. The actual one who has the control is Israel. The Palestinian Authority can't decide that they're going to say no to Israel.
The Palestinian Authority, is it being an accomplice, or is it just dealing with the reality?
I don't see what much of an option they have. I think they're trying to play a long game on the diplomatic arena. Yes.
But do you think they're a good alternative to Hamas?
I would have liked to see Hamas as part of the PLO together with the Palestinian Authority, because Israel supported and strengthened Hamas to be an alternative to the Fatah in the PLO, to cause a split and to cause them to fight among themselves. And Israel doing the same thing now in Gaza. It's giving weapons to other groups in Gaza for them to fight Hamas. And I think one of the very important things for the Palestinians is to, if possible, I know it's not easy, is to find some way of being united.
You recently did a protest at the German embassy.
We protested in front of the German embassy, saying that they should put on pressure. They're obligated to actually put on pressure on Israel, both because they're the most powerful and influential country in the European Union. They're the second largest supplier of weapons to Israel. They trade every year with Israel for about 8 billion euro. And also they have a moral obligation because of their historical past of preventing another genocide.
It's more guilt than anything, right? Because if you really understood the concept of genocide,
Germany is very messed up with their constitution demands that they protect Israel because of what the Germans did to Jews in the Second World War.
Germans are just very confused people, right?
I don't know.
But you're a bit German.
What?
You're a bit German because you have passport.
Yeah.
But you're not confused. But did you see any result from that protest?
We belong to a network of group of Israelis around Europe and the world, actually. And this was a collaborative protest. So the same day that we did this protest in Lisbon, other groups protested in New York and Washington and Brussels and Paris and a few other cities around Europe. we try to give a large message, like, I mean, not just us.
I think that's the goal, right? To keep trying until the dam breaks. I appreciate you coming, and especially because I think these things hold more weight coming from you, like an Israeli, a personally lived experience. And it is important that you speak out, and I want to thank you for your activism and for being able to detach yourself from the identity that was inculcated in you. To end the show, I want to ask the guest to leave a message, and it can be anything, like a personal message, a story, a call to action, a life philosophy, a couple of sentences, anything you want. And you just have to look at the camera, and then in post I will play some sad music behind.
If you remember, I mentioned at the beginning that I was actually born in South Africa. I always joke that I moved from one apartheid state to another apartheid state. When apartheid was ended in South Africa, they had something that they call the Truth and Reconciliation Committees. And I think this is a very important thing to understand, that alongside the political perspective, there are individuals that are behaving in a certain way because they are human, and eventually, when we want a long-term resolution to the current situation in Israel-Palestine, we need to address the issues that these people are suffering from as human beings. I think there need to be a Truth and Reconciliation Committee. There is an organization now active in Israel-Palestine called Collective of the Bereaved Families. It's parents of people who have lost family members due to the conflict, and they meet and they talk about their personal tragedies outside of the context of the conflict as it's described in a political context. So even though we can look and say that what is done to the Israelis as a collective is nothing compared to what's done to the Palestinians, we need to also realize that the personal tragedy for a mother that has lost her son is the same, whether they are Israeli or Palestinian. This message is a message that is very difficult for Israelis to accept. This organization of the bereaved families, they are prevented from coming and presenting discussions in schools in Israel. Israeli establishment feels very intimidated by this, but I think that eventually we have to see the people that are behind the politics to find a real lasting solution. That's what I wanted to say.
You're happy?
Yeah.
Okay.
But we first need to end the genocide, because that's here and now.
Okay. One more?
What?
You do it again.
I say that before we need to end
You have to say everything again.
everything. Why?
No, I'm just kidding. Just say the genocide part again.
Yes. We have to end the genocide now, because that's happening here and now, and it cannot wait.
Peace and love.
Peace and love.
Free Palestine?
Free Palestine.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
I need to get to the toilet.
Also, we need to go to the cafe.
Mm.
Unless you're okay with bushes.
Bushes is okay.
Really?